Hey Reddit. First time posting here, and honestly, I wish it was under better circumstances. I'm 38, and I've been married to my wife, Dana, for almost 12 years. No kids, unless you count our 10-year-old rescue mutt, Bear, who honestly has more emotional intelligence than half the people I've met in life. Dana and I were that couple back in college, her, confident, bold, unpredictable, me, steady, patient, maybe a little boring in comparison, but loyal as hell. We balanced each other out. At least I thought we did. We got married right after graduation with no money, no plan, just blind optimism and each other. I worked 2 jobs while she pursued her dream of becoming a photographer. Eventually, I landed a stable position in IT, and her small photography gig blossomed into a full-blown business. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Or at least, I thought we were. Over the last couple of years, something in her started to shift. She got colder. Not mean, not exactly, but distant. She stopped doing the little things. No more, "How was your day?" No more quick kisses before she left for shoots. It was like living with a roommate who tolerated you but didn't particularly like you. Her phone, once left on the coffee table without a second thought, suddenly had a passcode. She started hiding it under her pillow when she went to sleep. I asked once why, and she gave me a snippy, "You don't need to see everything I do." That sentence stuck with me. Sex became almost non-existent. At first, I thought maybe she was depressed or stressed from work. So I tried to help, cooked dinners, ran errands, cleaned the apartment top to bottom without being asked. I even started hitting the gym again, trying to look like the guy she fell for. But nothing worked. She just seemed irritated by my efforts, like my trying somehow made it worse. Like I was the clingy one. Then, about 6 months ago, we were sitting on the couch watching Netflix. One of those trashy reality dating shows was on. I made a joke, something about how messed up it was that people were swapping partners like playing cards, and she paused the TV. Looked me straight in the eye and said, "Have you ever thought about opening our marriage?" I thought she was joking. I laughed. She didn't. She was dead serious. She went on this whole speech about ethical non-monogamy, said she'd been reading about it for months, that monogamy was a societal construct, and that we should explore ourselves before we get too old and regret it. She even told me she loved me, but maybe not in that way anymore. That "not in that way" line hit me like a truck. I asked her straight up if there was someone else. She looked me in the eye, cold as a stone, and said no. That she wasn't seeing anyone. That this was about us, about growth. Said I should consider it too, that maybe I'd meet someone who made me feel wanted again. Wanted again. Like that wasn't supposed to be her job as my wife. I didn't say much after that. I just nodded, told her I'd think about it, and went for a long walk. Bear followed me without a leash. At least someone still cared. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until 4 a.m., my brain trying to untangle 1,000 red flags I had ignored over the past year. But the sickest part? Even then, I wanted to believe she wasn't cheating. That she was just confused, maybe having a midlife crisis or something. But deep down, I think I already knew. After Dana floated the whole open marriage idea, things between us grew tense, but oddly civil. She acted like she'd dropped a casual suggestion over dinner, not a bomb on our marriage. She carried on like normal, went to work, went to yoga, went to her photography meetups, but my brain never stopped spinning. I started noticing things that had been happening for months, but that I'd brushed off as coincidences or just stress. Like how she suddenly had a new best friend named Jared. Apparently, he was a fellow photographer she'd met through a local art collective. She said they were working on a project together. That he really got her creative energy flowing again. At first, I didn't think much of it. I'd never been the jealous type. I trusted her. We had been solid for so long. I figured she wouldn't throw that away. But then I saw the texts. I wasn't snooping, honestly, I wasn't. I walked past the kitchen one morning and saw her phone screen light up on the counter. The preview message just said, "Last night was incredible. Still thinking about how you moaned my name." And it was from Jared. I froze. Time just stopped. She came into the room a few seconds later, and I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost. She saw her phone in my hand, yanked it away, and immediately went on the attack. "What the hell are you doing? That's private." I didn't even get a word out before she launched into a rant about boundaries, trust, and how I was controlling and suffocating her. She tried to spin it, said it was a joke, part of some flirty roleplay she and Jared had as creative partners. Flirty roleplay? Seriously? I stood there, barely able to speak. I asked her again, "Are you sleeping with him?" She rolled her eyes like I was a child and replied, "What does it matter? You were supposed to be open to this." That's when it clicked. She hadn't asked for an open marriage out of curiosity or self-discovery. That was just the smoke screen. She wanted permission to cheat, retroactive permission, because she'd already been doing it. I walked out of the house that day, hands shaking, heart pounding. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to be anywhere that wasn't there. I ended up at a 24-hour diner, ordered coffee I couldn't taste, and sat in a booth for 3 hours staring at a crack in the wall. I thought I was going crazy. I kept thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is just a phase. Maybe I can fix this. I spent years loving that woman, building a life with her, putting her first. And now here I was, alone, trying to rationalize betrayal. When I came back that night, she was already in bed. Like nothing had happened. No apology. No remorse. Just silence. Bear was curled up outside the bedroom door, as if even he knew something wasn't right in there anymore. That night, I started planning. Not a fight. Not revenge. Something quieter. Smarter. Because if she wanted an open marriage, she was about to get an open account. With a damn good lawyer. The next morning, Dana acted like everything was normal. She was making herself a smoothie, humming, phone in hand, probably texting Jared, for all I knew. She gave me a lazy good morning, like we hadn't just torn a hole in the fabric of our marriage the day before. I stared at her for a few seconds. Something inside me felt different. The heartbreak was still there, raw and gnawing, but underneath it, something cold and steady was settling in. I realized, I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream. She didn't deserve that kind of passion anymore. I was going to end this on my terms. "Morning," I muttered, grabbing my keys like it was just another Tuesday. But inside, I had already crossed a line. There was no going back now. I called in sick to work and drove straight to my buddy Mark's office. He's a divorce attorney. We went to high school together, and while we lost touch for a bit, we recently reconnected. I told him I needed legal advice, discreetly. He asked me flat out, "Is she cheating?" I nodded. "She wanted an open marriage," I said, voice flat. "And now she's going to get an open account, with your help." Mark didn't even flinch. He laid out my options. Turns out, since I had been the primary financial supporter of her business and there was no prenup, she was technically on the hook if I could prove infidelity. But the key was documentation. Proof. So I became a ghost in my own life. Calm. Observant. I didn't confront her again. I played the part of the clueless husband, asked her about her photo shoots, complimented her outfits, pretended I was still thinking about the open marriage idea. She bought it. God, she loved the idea that she had the upper hand. She even got bolder. Started staying out later, smiling at her phone more often, locking it the second I entered the room. But I was building my case. I placed a small GPS tracker in her car. Cost me $40 and 5 minutes of paranoia. I bought a cheap burner phone to communicate with Mark and a private investigator he recommended. Within 2 weeks, we had photos of Dana and Jared entering a hotel together. Multiple times. Sometimes in the middle of the day, when she claimed she was at her studio editing photos. The best one. A shot of her in his car, kissing him goodbye in broad daylight, in front of his apartment, where he lived alone. No art project in sight. But that wasn't even the worst of it. One night while she was in the shower, she left her iPad on the couch. It was synced with her messages. I didn't even have to try to hack anything. I opened the app. There were dozens of messages between her and Jared. And some weren't just about sex. They were mocking me. Calling me boring. Predictable. Pathetic. She even told him she'd never loved anyone the way she loved him. I don't know what shattered more in that moment, my pride, my love for her, or just my belief that the person I married had any humanity left. But even then, I didn't confront her. I saved everything. Screenshots, message exports, date logs. I forwarded them all to Mark, who told me, "You're doing the right thing." Quiet moves, loud results. So I kept smiling. I kissed her forehead. I walked bare. I went to work like everything was normal. But I had already set the fuse. The explosion was coming. A month passed, and I kept up the act. Dana floated the open marriage conversation a few more times, now pushing it harder, like it was the most normal next step for two adults who loved each other but didn't want to be stuck. Her words. Not mine. I played along, told her I appreciated her honesty, told her I was warming up to the idea. Meanwhile, I was collecting more evidence, letting her hang herself with her own rope. The private investigator was worth every penny. The man had timestamps, video clips, hotel check-ins. I had everything. Then came the day everything fell into place, my birthday. Dana, of course, didn't plan anything. I wasn't expecting much. The year before, she had completely forgotten, only remembering when Facebook sent her a notification. This time, though, she said she was taking me out. I was shocked. Not because she was doing something nice, but because she said it with that smug, secretive smile she always had when she was up to something. She told me to meet her at this upscale rooftop restaurant downtown at 7 p.m. I was suspicious, but I went. I dressed nice. Told myself if she was going to make a scene, I was going to give her a hell of a performance in return. I walked in. Dana was already there. Hair done, new dress, heels I hadn't seen before. She stood up, hugged me with a weird mix of guilt and forced enthusiasm. And then, she waved someone over. Jared. He walked to the table with that same smug grin. The guy was a walking stereotype, douchey man bun, smug attitude, overly tight shirt to show off muscles like a midlife crisis in human form. Dana looked at me and said, "Since we've been talking about opening things up, I thought tonight could be our fresh start. Jared's going to be a part of our lives now." I swear to God, she said it like she was inviting a puppy into their home. My jaw clenched. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, then at him. The waiter came by, awkwardly sensing tension, and Dana chirped, "It's my husband's birthday." I smiled. Not because I was happy. Because I was ready. "I actually have a gift for you too," I said, reaching into my jacket. I pulled out a white envelope and slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked, starting to frown. "Open it." She did. And her face paled. Inside were printed screenshots of the messages between her and Jared. Photos of them leaving hotels. A letter from my lawyer. A formal divorce notice. Proof of adultery. All neat. All legal. All damning. Jared's grin disappeared. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. "You wanted an open marriage. Now you've got an open account, with a lawyer. And oh, Jared, just so you know, that car you've been driving her around in, it's in my name. I hope you like walking." Dana looked like she'd swallowed glass. She stood up, sputtering, trying to say something, anything. But I wasn't there for a debate. I stood up too, adjusted my watch, and said, "Happy birthday to me." Then I walked out. No yelling. No fighting. Just quiet victory. And I swear, for the first time in months, I finally felt like myself again. After the birthday dinner fiasco, I expected chaos. Screaming. Maybe even a crying phone call. What I didn't expect was silence. Not a word from Dana that night. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive messages left on the bathroom mirror in lipstick like she used to do during our old fights. It was eerie. Like the calm after a tornado, when everything's still standing, but you know nothing is okay. The next morning, she came home. I was already in the kitchen, pouring my coffee like nothing happened. Bear wagged his tail at her, confused and hopeful. Dana walked in slowly, looking like a ghost. She opened her mouth, probably ready to launch into some twisted version of an apology. But I didn't let her. "I've already moved half of my stuff to a short-term rental," I said, casually sipping my coffee. "Mark filed the divorce papers this morning. You'll be served officially sometime this week." She blinked. "You're really doing this?" I tilted my head. "What did you think I was going to do, Dana? Beg you to stop sleeping with your creative partner? Try to win you back after watching you smile while he held your hand at my birthday dinner?" She looked away, lips tight, nostrils flaring. "You're being dramatic." I actually laughed. "Dramatic? No. I was dramatic when I bought you flowers every time you said you were just tired and too stressed for sex. I was dramatic when I defended you to my friends after you ditched our anniversary dinner for a last-minute shoot. This." I motioned to their house, to my coffee, to her standing there hollowed out by her own decisions. "This is peace." She didn't like that. She tried to switch tactics. Said she wanted to talk about healing. Said we could still work through this. I asked her, calmly, how exactly she planned to work through it with Jared still in the picture. She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, "Do you really think you'll find someone better than me?" I smiled. Not a smirk, not a laugh, just a quiet, knowing smile. "No," I said. "I know I will." She stood there stunned for a moment, and then stormed off to the bedroom like she was the one betrayed. The audacity of that woman. You cheat, you lie, you manipulate, and then act like you're the victim because you didn't think I'd have the guts to walk away. Newsflash, I did. I am. Later that day, I cancelled her access to our joint accounts. Froze the credit cards. Transferred all shared funds into a separate account under my name, legally cleared through my attorney. The look on her face when she realized she couldn't order her $12 acai bowls or schedule a spa day on my dime anymore. Priceless. Jared? That idiot tried to text me. Said I was immature for dragging lawyers into something that could have been handled like adults. I forwarded the message to my attorney and blocked his number. You don't cheat with another man's wife and then ask for maturity when the hammer drops. A week after I served Dana the divorce papers, the real unraveling began. Not just for our marriage, that was already in the grave, but for her carefully curated public image. See, Dana wasn't just a photographer. She branded herself as this artsy, empowered, women-supporting women entrepreneur. She hosted workshops for young female creatives, gave TEDx talks on authenticity in business, and posted these nauseating Instagram captions like, "Never settle for less than your full self, professionally or romantically." I always rolled my eyes at that, but hey, she was making a name for herself. I let her have it. What she didn't count on was that in this social media-obsessed world, hypocrisy gets you faster than karma ever could. I didn't go scorched earth. I didn't need to. All it took was one leak. An anonymous tip sent to her business's Instagram DMs, her artist collective's email thread, and her most recent workshop partners. The tip? A copy of one of the tamer texts between her and Jared, the one where she called me emotionally neutered and laughed about faking migraines to avoid intimacy with me. I didn't even have to send the raunchy stuff or their hotel photos. That one message? Enough to open the floodgates. Suddenly, her followers weren't commenting, "Yes, Queen," under her posts. They were asking, "Is this how you treat your husband of 12 years? One of her biggest sponsors pulled out of a collaborative project with her. Her studio bookings dipped. A couple of women in her creative circle publicly cut ties. I stayed out of it. Let the receipts do the talking. She tried to control the damage with a vague post about painful personal transitions and choosing freedom. Jared even posted a black and white photo of her hand in his with a cringy caption, "When the heart knows, the world can't stop it." Buddy. The world wasn't stopping you. It was just pointing out you were a homewrecker with bad timing and worse judgment. Meanwhile, I was thriving quietly. I moved into a clean, modern apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just mine. Peaceful. No more passive-aggressive post-it notes on the fridge. No more walking on eggshells around someone who treated me like background noise. I got back in touch with old friends. Started going to the gym again, not for her, just for me. Bear adjusted quickly. He loved the extra walks and new neighborhood smells. I started sleeping better too. Like, actually sleeping through the night without waking up in that anxious sweat wondering what lie she'd tell me tomorrow. Dana tried reaching out again a few days later. She showed up at my building, buzzed my apartment through the front security gate. Said she just wanted to talk. I told her I had nothing left to say. She got angry, of course. Claimed I was running away from closure. Closure? No. I wasn't running from closure. I gave closure, complete with a signature and notarized forms. She wanted an open marriage. Now she had open DMs, open contempt from her followers, and an open invoice from her attorney, because I wasn't paying her legal fees either. I thought the storm had passed. I'd moved out, filed for divorce, cut the financial ties, and exposed just enough of her betrayal to sink her golden girl image without turning it into a tabloid circus. I figured that would be it. She'd sulk, maybe throw herself deeper into Jared's arms, God help him, and life would move on. But I underestimated Dana's need for control. For power. She couldn't handle the fact that I didn't collapse. That I didn't chase her. That I didn't scream or beg or spiral. So she did what narcissists do when they feel themselves losing grip. She played dirty. It started with her trying to drag Bear into it. I kid you not. I got a call from my attorney. She wanted partial custody of the dog. Claimed she had an emotional bond and that I was using Bear as leverage to punish her. The same dog she barely acknowledged for the last 2 years, who she used to complain was too hairy and smelled like kibble breath. Now, suddenly, he was her soulmate. I laughed. Mark didn't. He told me this was a common tactic, try to escalate the case by attaching emotions to property. Stretch things out. Drain the other party financially and mentally. So I played it cool. I countered with a reasonable offer, full custody of Bear to me, with visitation allowed once a month if she scheduled in advance. It was a bluff. I knew she didn't give a damn about Bear. She didn't even remember his vet's name. As expected, she dropped it when she realized I wasn't going to bite. Then came round 2, their emotional abuse angle. Dana filed a statement saying I was manipulative, controlling, and had neglected her emotional needs during our marriage. She even accused me of financial abuse for closing the joint accounts. Never mind that I documented every transaction, and she had her own business income. She was throwing darts in the dark, hoping something stuck. My lawyer came in clutch again. We had text logs, receipts, bank statements, even character witnesses ready. Dana had nothing but vague accusations and her signature drama. The judge saw right through it. During the mediation, Dana came in with tears, shaking hands, and a story so rehearsed it could have won a bad soap opera award. When Mark presented the evidence of her affair, her mocking texts, and their hotel records, she broke character real quick. The mediator asked if reconciliation was possible. I said no. Dana? She just sat there, blinking, as if she'd just now realized this was real. That this wasn't another fight she could win with crocodile tears and shifting blame. That she couldn't gaslight a courtroom. When it was over, the mediator stepped out, and Dana turned to me, voice low. "You really think you're going to be happy without me?" I looked her dead in the eye and said, "I already am." She didn't have a response to that. Just stared at the table, lips pressed together, hands trembling, not from sadness, but from the loss of control. She never thought I'd leave. Never thought I'd fight back. Never thought the quiet guy who always forgave her would have the spine to burn the bridge and walk away without flinching. She was wrong. After mediation, everything moved fast. The paperwork was finalized, the assets divided, fairly, though I ended up with a bit more than she expected thanks to that little adultery clause Mark slipped in. Bear, thankfully, stayed with me, which was really the only custody I gave a damn about. Dana moved out of our old house. I sold it 3 weeks later. Took a hit on the price, but it was worth it to be rid of the memories. I didn't want to walk through those halls and wonder if she kissed him on that couch or if she moaned his name in our bed. No thanks. I wanted a clean slate, and now I had one. I won't lie and say I felt amazing every single day. There were nights when it hit me all at once, the betrayal, the wasted years, the feeling of being a fool. I'd lie awake and ask myself, how did I not see it coming? How did I let it go this far? And worse, what if I'm just not good enough for anyone? That's the thing about being cheated on. It's not just the act, it's the erosion of your self-worth. You start questioning everything. You start wondering if you were too boring, too quiet, too predictable. You replay every argument, every quiet dinner, every time she rolled her eyes when you made a joke. You try to figure out the exact moment the love died. But slowly, the fog lifted. I started to remember who I was before I spent years trying to keep someone who didn't want to be kept. I started reading again. Hiking. Traveling. I took a solo trip to Colorado, just me and Bear. No schedule, no phone calls, no pretending. Just freedom. Funny thing is, when you stop carrying someone else's weight, you realize how heavy it was. I started reconnecting with friends I'd unintentionally distanced myself from because Dana never really liked them. Had some long overdue beers, some overdue laughs. And you know what? Every single one of them said the same thing, "Man, we saw it coming. We just didn't know how to tell you." That stung. Not because they were wrong, but because I hadn't been willing to see what was right in front of me. Dana isolated me. Subtly. Gradually. Like water dripping on stone. It wasn't some obvious prison, it was a velvet one. But now the door was wide open. I started therapy too. Something I used to scoff at, I can handle it myself, but I needed it. I needed someone neutral to help me sort the mess. And one session in, my therapist said something that stuck with me. Sometimes, people don't change. They just finally stop pretending. That was Dana in a nutshell. She didn't become someone new. She just dropped the mask. And thank God she did, because now I could stop pretending too. I wasn't the problem. I was the escape plan she didn't appreciate. I was her stability, her safety net, her financial cushion, her backup plan. But I'm nobody's plan B. A few months into my new life, the dust had finally settled. The divorce was finalized, Dana had slinked back into whatever corner of the world she now occupied with Jared, and I had found a rhythm again. My mornings were mine. I'd walk Bear before sunrise, brew my own coffee, no more overpriced organic oat milk nonsense, and sit by the window reading something I actually enjoyed. Peace had a taste, and I'd been starving for it. Work improved too. I started getting promotions I didn't expect, mostly because I finally had the mental clarity to focus again. It's crazy how much energy you waste trying to keep a sinking relationship afloat. My boss noticed. My coworkers noticed. Hell, even I noticed. I was sharper, more present, more me than I'd been in years. Then one Thursday evening, 3 months after the final signature dried, I got a knock on the door. It was Dana. Hair tied up like she hadn't slept. No makeup. Baggy hoodie, eyes red. She looked like someone who had been losing. And I don't mean just losing sleep. I mean losing control. "Hey," she said softly, not looking me in the eye. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, door halfway open. I know I probably shouldn't be here, but can we talk? Please. I should have shut the door. But part of me, maybe the part that still needed that final nail in the coffin, stepped aside and let her in. She walked in slowly, like she was entering a church, not the same apartment I'd told her never to visit again. She looked around, noticed the clean simplicity of it, the new furniture. She even smiled a little when Bear came up to sniff her, then walked away uninterested. Even he had moved on. We sat across from each other. She didn't waste time. "It's over with Jared," she said quietly. "It's been over." I said nothing. Not my business anymore. He's not who I thought he was. I leaned back in my chair. No. He's exactly who you thought he was. You just didn't think you'd ever have to deal with the fallout. She winced, but I wasn't done. Let me guess, he didn't want a real relationship once I was out of the picture. Lost interest once the taboo was gone. Tears welled up. She didn't deny it. Then she said the line I should have predicted but still felt surreal to hear. I made a mistake. I just stared at her. I waited. Not because I was hoping she'd say something that would fix it all, but because I wanted to see how far she'd go. I thought I wanted freedom, she said, voice cracking. I thought I was missing something. But it turns out, you were the best thing in my life. I nodded slowly. Yeah. I was. She tried to reach for my hand across the table. I pulled back. You said once that I'd never find someone better than you, I said, standing up. But what you didn't realize is that I already had me. I found the version of myself you buried. She started crying. I didn't comfort her. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her I already had. But forgiveness, I said, opening the door again, doesn't mean access. She left with her shoulders hunched and her pride in pieces. And me? I closed the door. Locked it. Turned off the porch light. And took Bear for a walk under the stars like I used to before life got so damn complicated. After Dana's visit, I won't lie, I felt off. Not in a miss her kind of way. More like when you get a sudden cold breeze through a warm room. Unsettling, but fleeting. I didn't let it shake me. I knew her tears weren't about me. They were about her losing control of the narrative. For the first time in her life, someone walked away from her instead of toward her chaos. The following days were quiet again. Peaceful, even more so now that I knew the story was truly over. No more illusions. No more what ifs. Just clean space where something toxic used to live. Then came the messages. Not from Dana. From people around her. Her sister messaged me on Facebook. "I just want to say I'm sorry for what she did. We all saw it happening and didn't know how to step in. You didn't deserve that." A girl from Dana's photography circle DM'd me on Instagram. "I used to admire your marriage. Now I just admire how you handled the fallout. Total grace under fire. Respect." Even a former co-worker of mine, who Dana always hated, texted me. "Heard through the grapevine you're finally free. Drinks on me sometime." Funny how people show up when the storm clears. Some out of guilt. Some out of curiosity. Some, I think, just needed permission to say what they always knew. Dana was never the saint she pretended to be. Meanwhile, her reputation continued to quietly unravel. I didn't say a word about her publicly. I didn't need to. Enough people knew. The same people who once gushed about her perfect social media life now whispered about the fallout. Her bookings slowed. Her sponsors kept their distance. She posted fewer selfies, fewer empowerment quotes, more vague sad captions about life taking unexpected turns. Turns out, people don't want advice from someone who lied their way through a marriage and tried to play victim when the truth caught up. I kept my head down. Focused on work, health, peace. I started volunteering at a dog shelter on weekends. Bear loved it. So did I. The simplicity of it. The honesty. You show up, you care, you help, and nobody tries to gaslight you or sleep with your coworker. One night, while watching an old movie and sipping whiskey, I got a text from an unknown number. Dana. Do you ever think about what we had? I stared at it for a long moment. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I did. I typed. Sure. I think about it every time I walk into my own place, free from lies, and realize how much better life is without you in it. Then I hit send. Blocked the number. Sat back, phone face down. I didn't need a response. That was the response. The final word in a story that no longer owned me. Some ghosts knock one last time just to see if the door still opens. Mine found it permanently shut. After I blocked Dana's last message, something inside me finally settled. I don't know how else to explain it. Not closure, not revenge, not satisfaction, freedom. True, weightless, guiltless freedom. It didn't come with fireworks. It came with silence. Beautiful, calm, undisturbed silence. No more wondering where she was at night. No more dissecting her texts, or second-guessing every little mood shift. No more knots in my stomach. For the first time in years, my life belonged to me again. A few days later, I went out with some old friends, guys I hadn't seen in years because Dana always said they were toxic influences. Turns out, they weren't toxic. They were just people who saw through her crap before I did. We sat around a fire pit in my friend Kyle's backyard. It was simple, just beer, grilled burgers, and old stories. But it felt like rediscovering a part of myself I'd put in storage. The laughter, the raw honesty, the lack of judgment. One of the guys looked at me and said, "Man, I haven't seen you this light in years." And he was right. I'd been living under emotional gravity for so long, I forgot what it felt like to just exist without permission. One of the most healing moments came from something unexpected. I found an old showbox in a moving bin, one I'd forgotten during the chaos. It was full of mementos from my early days with Dana, ticket stubs, Polaroids, handwritten notes from when she used to sign off with "yours always." I stared at those artifacts of a different woman. A different me. And I realized something, the version of Dana in those memories didn't exist anymore, maybe she never did. Maybe she was just good at playing the role long enough to get comfortable. I didn't burn the box. I didn't cry either. I just closed it, taped it shut, and dropped it off at a donation center the next morning. Someone else could use the box. I didn't need the ghosts inside it. Weeks turned into months. I got promoted at work, nothing flashy, but I was leading a new team, finally recognized for what I brought to the table. I started dating again, slowly. No pressure. No pretending. Just real conversations with real people. One woman I met actually said, "You seem grounded." That hit hard. I wasn't trying to impress anyone, I was just being. That's the part they don't tell you about after betrayal. It's not just the heartbreak that hurts. It's the rebuilding of your identity that's the hardest. You have to look at the mirror and decide, who am I without their version of me? I used to think forgiveness was about letting someone back in. Now I know, it's about letting yourself go. Letting yourself move on, breathe again, smile without guilt. Dana wanted an open marriage. And I gave it to her. But what she didn't expect was what I opened for myself in the process. A life. As the months rolled on, I barely thought about Dana anymore. Not out of spite, just genuine indifference. She had become part of the background noise of my past. That's how I knew I had truly moved on. Healing, I've learned, isn't a loud moment. It's waking up one day and realizing you no longer carry the weight of someone else's choices. But of course, people like her don't just fade away quietly. I started hearing whispers through mutual acquaintances, people I wasn't even particularly close with. Dana and Jared? They didn't last long. Apparently, he got bored once the thrill wore off. Shocker. Rumor was, he needed space once the real-world responsibilities started creeping in. You know, the part that comes after you blow up someone else's marriage for the fantasy of true love. She tried posting about learning to love herself, but the captions didn't slap the same without a ring on her finger or her curated couple photos. Her likes dropped. Engagement tanked. I heard she took a hiatus from photography, claiming burnout. Truth was, she burned every bridge on their way down. Turns out clients don't love working with someone who trashed their husband, tanked their own reputation, and then played victim when it all went sideways. Meanwhile, I started dating someone new. Her name was Lily. We met at the dog park. Simple, accidental, organic. The first thing I noticed was how she knelt down to pet Bear before she even looked up at me. That meant something. Our conversations were different. No power games. No walking on eggshells. No pretending to be cooler or edgier or smarter than we really were. Just honesty. She asked me on our second date, "What's the worst thing you've ever survived?" I told her the truth. Briefly. Without bitterness. Just the facts. She didn't flinch. Just nodded and said, "That must have been hell. But you're here." That was all she needed to say. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not for what I could provide or how well I could perform, but for who I was at my core. A man who was broken and rebuilt, not in someone else's image, but in his own. I didn't dive into love with Lily headfirst. I took my time. I let it be messy, awkward, slow. But also, real. We didn't label anything fast. We just existed, hiking, cooking, dog walking, late night talking. And it was enough. Then one day, I ran into Dana again. Pure accident. Grocery store parking lot. She was in a hoodie, messy bun, pushing a cart alone. I was with Lily. We were laughing about something dumb, probably Bear knocking over the cereal box earlier. Dana saw me. Her eyes scanned Lily. Then Bear. Then back to me. And I swear, her entire face changed. She looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Just nodded. I nodded back. No smile. No smugness. Just a silent acknowledgement of what was and what never will be again. I walked away. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. A couple weeks after that random parking lot encounter, I got an email. Not a text. Not a call. An actual email. Subject line. I owe you the truth. I almost deleted it without opening. But something in me, morbid curiosity, maybe, clicked. It was from Dana. The message was long. Rambling. Equal parts apology, justification, and a last-ditch grasp at rewriting the past. She wrote about how she'd lost herself in the pressure of running her business, how she'd started feeling unseen and unimportant, how Jared made her feel alive again. She admitted that yes, the affair had started before the open marriage conversation. That she had already emotionally checked out but didn't have the guts to leave, so she pushed the idea of non-monogamy to clear her conscience while still keeping her comfort. She wrote, "I didn't expect you to take action. I thought you'd always be there." That line hit me in a weird way. Not because it hurt, because it confirmed everything I'd already known. I was never her husband. I was her backup plan. Her safety net. Her emotional punching bag with a paycheck. She ended it with a question. "Do you think we could ever have some kind of friendship again? Maybe, someday." I didn't reply. What was there to say? The time for friendship died the moment she laughed at my expense in bed with another man. The moment she rolled her eyes when I cried. The moment she used my loyalty as a stepping stone into someone else's arms and called it growth. Forgiveness is not the same thing as access. I'd already made peace with the past. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need revenge or validation or closure. That's the thing about healing: once you truly arrive, you don't go back to read old chapters. You just close the book and start writing a better one. That same night, Lily and I made dinner together. Nothing fancy, just pasta and cheap wine and jazz playing in the background. She asked me about my day, and I didn't even think to mention the email. Because it didn't matter anymore. Because I wasn't that man anymore. Because I'd outgrown the storm that once drowned me. I wasn't surviving Dana's betrayal. I was thriving in spite of it. And that made all the difference. It wasn't one huge moment. No fireworks, no epic declaration, no slow-motion movie scene. It was just a quiet Saturday morning. I woke up next to Lily, bear curled at our feet like he'd been guarding us through the night. The sun poured through the windows of the apartment, not the one I escaped to after the divorce, but a new place. Our place. A fresh start in every sense of the word. Lily stirred awake and mumbled something incoherent about coffee. I smiled. I got up, started the pot, and fed Bear. Everything felt easy. Uncomplicated. Safe. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. No tension in my chest. No rehearsing conversations in my head. No monitoring someone else's moods or second-guessing if I was enough. I wasn't existing under emotional surveillance anymore. I was just living. Later that afternoon, Lily and I took Bear to a local festival, one of those wholesome community events with food trucks, live music, and families everywhere. We tried deep-fried Oreos, never again, danced badly to an acoustic cover band, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. At one point, she pulled me aside, wrapped her arms around me, and said, "You know what I love about us? Nothing feels forced." That hit me harder than anything Dana ever said in 12 years. Because that's what I'd been missing all along: peace. Authentic, quiet, consistent peace. No manipulation, no performance, no walking on eggshells. Just showing up, and being loved for it. That night, lying in bed, I looked over at Lily as she drifted off to sleep. And I knew something with absolute clarity: the man I had become, the man forged in the fire of betrayal, was someone I was proud of. Someone stronger. Wiser. More present. More grounded. I had lost everything I thought made up my life. And yet, I had never felt more whole. There was no longing anymore. No anger. No grief. Just gratitude. Because Dana didn't break me. She freed me. She wanted an open marriage. And she got one. Along with a front row seat to what it looks like when the man she underestimated rebuilds himself, without her. If you'd told me a year ago I'd be sitting here, at peace, in love, finally living for myself, I'd have laughed in your face. Back then, I was a shell of a man. Doubting myself every day, bending over backwards for someone who already had one foot out the door, clinging to a fantasy of what our marriage used to be. I thought loyalty meant staying, no matter how much it hurt. Now? I know better. Looking back, I don't hate Dana. That surprises even me. Hate takes energy, and I've learned my energy is worth more. She was a storm. And for a long time, I mistook her chaos for passion. I thought loving her through the worst made me strong. But real strength isn't staying with someone who disrespects you. It's walking away and not looking back. Would I do things differently? Maybe. I might have left sooner. Trusted my gut the first time she started pulling away. Asked harder questions when she got defensive. But I don't regret the path I walked, it led me here. And here is pretty damn good. Lily and I are taking things slow, but steady. We talk about everything. No secrets, no silences. She knows about Dana. Knows their whole mess. And instead of judging me for it, she tells me it just shows how deeply I love, even when it hurts. She reminds me daily, I'm not too boring, too predictable, or too safe. I'm enough. Bear's older now, slowing down a bit, but is still my shadow. He was there for all of it, the nights I cried alone, the mornings I forced myself out of bed, the moment I walked out of that restaurant and never looked back. He's been the quiet constant in all of this. Sometimes I look at him and think, he knew before I did. So if you're reading this because you're in the thick of betrayal, if you're feeling like your world is collapsing and you're questioning your worth, hear me. You are not what someone else failed to love. You are not the weight of their lies. You are not broken beyond repair. You are still here. You can rebuild. You will rebuild. And one day, you'll look back, not with bitterness, but with clarity, and realize that losing them was the best thing that ever happened to you. Dana wanted an open marriage. And she got one. But I got freedom. I got peace. I got me. And honestly, that's the happiest ending I could have ever asked for. The end.